Welcome to Us. Us is a podcast all about us. Everybody a collective. Everybody a part of a link that makes the world what it is. As we raise our vibration, raise our consciousness, understand we're all connected, then the world gets better. Who'd have thought? All the chaos that's going on now is definitely due to disconnectivity, mostly brought on by ignorance, but also people that profit by these sort of things. One of the things we like to do here, we like to promote and talk about concepts and things that people can do to bring their vibration back. The vibration in everything in the universe is what makes it work. In other words, you can wake up with depression. There's things you can do to raise your vibrational frequency, which would take the depression out. It's also a good indicator and technique. Actually, it's the way it works when you deal with intuitive readings and that sort of thing. The way it works is you, as a reader, you change your vibrational frequency to connect to the person that you're talking to, and then look beyond them. Today, and one of the things about this, I've always been really big on the whole vibration thing, and of course, the vibration most people are more connected with and more understand more of is the vibration of sound. And so today we have Leanne with
Energy Anatomy.
Energy Anatomy. There you go. Sorry about that. She does sound healing and that sort of thing, and something I've always been interested in. I've always kind of enjoyed that aspect of the healing process. And here she is. Go ahead.
Hi, Robert. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to be on your podcast and talk about my practice and talk about my work. And sound healing is just an aspect of what I do. You did a reading for me in, I think it was 96, 97.
Wow.
And you've been in the industry and you've been an intuitive for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so I love how established you are and how you're bringing your experience, talking about alignment, talking about vibration, and talking about how our energy entrains with another, and how to be the one. Like my mic keeps going out. If you're the one that is the higher vibration, how to bring your energy up so that you're not bringing your energy down. So I do Thai massage, energy healing, sound healing, and I have a practice in Colleyville. I started doing this kind of work officially, I would say, in 2010. I learned how to heal with crystals. I took a class from The Power of the Rainbow. She taught, it was Pat Cook. She has a crystal store in Arlington, Texas. She teaches along the lines of Katrina Raphael, who is one of the master crystal healing experts. She has a class that's, I would say, 16 or 17 modules long. So I took those courses and I learned Reiki, Theta healing. I learned, sound healing. I took a holographic sound class from Paul Hubert in Austin. Can you hear my mic going now?
It is. I've already talked to him.
Okay. So
Ridiculous.
I'm wondering if I want to take my my headphones off.
Well, it was making you nuts. Go ahead.
and then I learned Thai massage. And really, when I first started doing energy healing and when I started doing it for money, I would say it was right around 2012. And at that time, I wasn't touching people. I wasn't touching their body. I would just work in the area around their field and just work in the energy and organize and assemble energy there, because that's really where the action is. It's where all the the emotions and the layers of psychology and the layers of energy. A lot of times when the emotional and the mental body aren't, when they're at odds with each other, it can create havoc in the mind and in the heart. And I noticed that was going on a lot, especially in that time. And I found myself organizing the energy around them. And then at the end of the session, they would sit up and I would have a conversation with them. And I realized how much I was actually picking up from the energy field. And it was the organizing and the sorting out of the energy around them, but it was also the conversation that healed them, because it really put it really put words to what happened. And it was really then that I realized what I was actually picking up from the energy field. And really that's kind of where the conversation can go today. It's because sound healing can be mostly in the energy field.
Right. Well, that's really what we're looking at, talking about, is the vibrational, the sound healing, the techniques, how you work it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell us maybe some benefits from sound healing.
So in 2016, Jenny Alterman at Rescue Yoga, I was working out of a room in Carrollton in one of her, at the yoga studio. She came and said, Leah, I'm going to get some tuning forks. And right when she said that, it was almost like, it was a flag, it was a trigger. It was almost like my whole life took another turn. Right. And then I began to learn about tuning forks. And I did a lot of research, but I learned mostly from a lady named Eileen McCusick. She is a researcher and established a type of healing called biofield tuning. And I listened to her presentations, I listened to her premise, and I got how there are layers of your energy field around you. And I knew that, but I didn't really realize that the energy field contains layers of energy, almost like rings of a tree, from the beginning of your body to the outer rim, which is about 6 feet in most people. And the closer you get to the outer rim, the closer you are to your birth. And there's actually a membrane on the outer rim of your energy field that is your gestation period. And I learned how to find coherences and incoherences in the energy field by using sound, by letting the tuning forks pitch tell me where it's organized or where it's incoherent. When there's incoherences in the energy field, like I'm going to just hit this tuning fork. There we go. My mic is going in and out. But you can hear where an injury was, for instance, in the energy field. You can hear birth trauma. You can hear it when there's frustration in the energy field. And you can take that energy and sort it out. It's almost like a part of you. Let's say you're left to cry in your crib, and it made you feel abandoned, and it really affected the way that you felt. I know, Robert's laughing, but I'm just giving an example of a 4-year-old. I mean, what can go wrong with a 4-year-old? Or a 3-year-old or a baby.
Yeah, you get hit by a brick with your aunt. So.
But let's say that it affected you to a point where it affected everything else in your life about it. Everything lined up with abandonment. Everything that you thought lined up with abandonment. Let's say you can find that space in the energy field, and you can bring it into a balance, and then you can bring all the energy from all that time in your lifetime and bring it into the body to metabolize. Then you're not operating on that thought anymore. There's different things that, like your birth trauma. If you had birth trauma, it's going to show up in your right knee, really close to the edge of your energy field. like if you have a hernia in your body, a hole in your body is a hole in your energy field. And I worked with someone that had a hernia, and I found the spot. I was using a bowl. I was using a metal bowl. I just sort of took the bowl and was looking for what was going on in the energy field to create this condition. And she literally had a hole. Like I was able to play music, or I was able to play the bowl, move the bowl out of directly away from that space in her body, and there was a hole about this big in her energy field. And it felt really empty, and the bowl would not play in that spot.
Wow.
And she heard it too, and it connected to a breakup that she had when she was 25. And actually, there was a lot of anxiety going on too. There were actually hooks and cords and ties to that person that she hooked into that energy of her ex, and she was energetically feeling his life. He was a grown man. This maybe 25 or 30 years later, so he had a family and a job and all of that. And so she not only had her worries, she was tuned into his energy.
Wow.
And she could feel his worries too. So that energy was broken apart and sorted out, and the body healed.
Yeah. Vibrational or sound healing, it's been around for like thousands of years.
Yes, it's an ancient science.
Yeah, they don't do really the technicals like the shamans that I were hanging out with in the Amazon. They use Icaros, which is chants or just some manipulations, not even of words, but of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do it in conjunction with maybe a hand or whatever you may be. A lot of the shamans, they also do distant stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all based on, like, they make these sounds, or they make these sounds or these chants, and then they listen, and then they watch the person, how they react.
Yeah.
And then they'll adjust it from there.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. It's been around forever. I mean, even Buddha talked about it, I believe, and a lot of those goes back in the day, you know.
Yeah, we are actually re-pioneering in ancient science. And for instance, like if you had a surgeon, I was watching a show last night about a healer, and if you had a surgeon who gave like a C-section, for instance, and cut through 2 layers of fascia, pulled a baby out, and they're really reckless the way they put everything back together. And think about how many layers of energy you're cutting through, and how many, like each energy field, each layer of fascia has its own matrix. You cut through 2 layers of matrix, and then you have an outer matrix, and then just think about all the damage it does. I mean, does the surgeon think to put his hand over the cut and seal up the matrix of the body?
No. No.
And some people just
And the
never
thing about
heal,
it-
and it's like, well, the matrix was never able to come back together.
Even on an energetic, physical sense, it stops that flow right there.
It does.
Yeah.
It
Just like
breaks
even
it.
a burn, you can burn yourself and it'll stop the flow.
Right.
I used to do healings. Well, I've done them over the years, but I remember when I first got started, my son burned his arm. He was about 5 years old. And so I just kind of looked at it, and I did kind of this, I was making these sounds, and I was not touching, but put my hand over it.
Yeah.
Because I could, as I run my hand over it, without touching him, I could feel the difference in body heat.
Right.
Wherever the burn was, you think it'd be hotter, but actually it was colder. So the idea is to smooth it out. Yeah. And what you're talking about is pretty much the same thing, but when you're dealing with, an energy that you can't see or hear or anything like that, it's just another aspect of that. But the sound thing is cool because there's ways to tangibly get it involved. See,
Yeah.
a lot of times your clients, I don't know about yours, but probably yours, will, if they don't see you working with something or doing some sort of technique, they won't accept.
There's a
won't accept
lot
the
of people
change.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is.
You get in the habit of hurting. You can get in the habit of hurting. You can get in the habit of having pain.
Right.
So the
An
vibration if you can calm them enough that the vibration will take hold.
Yeah, well, anxiety, a lot of pain does. I mean, it makes you shut down your root and
Yeah.
it ungrounds you. And people that have been in pain for a while, that's why I add a little bit of body work too. And, your body has different sections, up. There's a section up here at the neck, and there's a section in the shoulders. There's a section where the rib cage ends. There's a section where your hips are. And you can be completely out of a line. And you can be within the sections of your body, and you can be completely out of line between your left and your right.
Right. And if they're like that for very long, they can actually get physical defects.
Oh, absolutely.
Like either cancer, skin cancers,
scoliosis type of conditions,
stuff,
and you can. You have also something in your energy field called your assemblage, ASSEMBLAGE, I think, and it's right here above your chest. And if your assemblage, if your energy field center is lower than the spot on your heart where it needs to be, if it's even just a little bit lower, it can create anxiety. And just finding that space or finding where the energy is. So a lot of times whenever I get somebody, I call them newbies or normies, when they come in and they, well, what is she doing?
Normie. Made me think of Cheers, where Cheers, they walk in, he says Norm.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm about to pull my my Yelp page down because I get a lot of normies. But those can be the most life-changing sessions too, like a very first session with somebody who's really working your energy. And it appears to them as if I'm just pressing on them or moving energy here or moving energy there. So it feels like just a regular session, but I'm actually sorting them out completely. You have energy lines that run from the top of your head down to the tip of your toe that go through the entire body, and they can be blocked or interfered. Even junk food can junk up your energy and junk up your energy field, and it can create anxiety, and it can create all kinds of havoc.
Well, there's actually, when you take something, I do this when it comes from a restaurant or somewhere.
Yeah,
you got to heal, literally heal the
heal
food
it first. Yeah,
absolutely.
Add some energy to it, and everyone can do this. That's the thing. We've been led against for so long. Not paying attention to pure life force energy, and we can only see 4% of the of matter. We can only see matter is only 4% of what exists. If you had the eyes of a cat, have you seen your cat just running around chasing things? They can see interdimensionally. We're interdimensional beings. But the other thing that sound can do is, your energy field is we are electrical magnetic beings. So our heart is electrical, and our body works through magnetic pulsation. It's electrical magnetic, and our muscles and the way that our stem cells are powered, the way that our muscles are powered, it's piezoelectric. It's crystalline energy being moved through the body, and it creates a magnetic field around us. It's an electrical field, and we are inundated with electrical fields all the way around us. And if you sleep in a room or sleep near a room where there's Wi-Fi or lots of magnetic energy coming at you, it erodes your energy field. And sound can, because it's actually a plasma layer. It's a layer of plasma. The Earth has a plasmic field around it, and so does the sun. Every living body, and you can measure it. Have you seen those? Have you seen the photography where you take a picture of food and you can see the energetic pattern around it, and you can see what food is alive? I mean, our body's like that. That is living life force plasmic energy.
Yeah. Everything has what they would call a torus.
Right.
Everything has that.
Just like on
Just like that's why I got it like that. Yeah.
The torus, us. Right.
Yeah. And it's when you get in line with that, that's when things really start to work.
Right. And that's
like, obviously these mics are not aligned in that right now.
Right.
You see that?
Right.
That's just my anxiety hanging out here. Anyway.
That is funny, and that's what Tesla's work, the free energy toroidal field. But you have energy fields that go around you, and you can electrify that plasma with sound as well. I electrify the crown just about in every session. I do that, and it activates the crown. A lot of times people are suffering because they don't add spirit to their life. They don't add it into let's see, as a partner in their life, and they shut down, the spirit communication that comes in through the crown, the ideas that come in.
When you're talking about spirit now, what are you saying now?
I'm talking about your spirit.
There you go.
It communicates with you right about the crown, and a lot of times when I'm working with someone and they're in a lot of pain, their root is shut down, and so is the crown. So they think they have to wrangle life themselves. They think they have to control everything. If I don't get it done, nobody's going to get it done, and that's a whole other mind program too. You have to unravel all of that so they can sit there at the end of a session and be at peace. Get closer to the mic.
That'll help. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go again. It still goes back to the spirituality of like tribes. They live their whole life through spirituality. You see?
Yes.
And so every healing technique, every rite of passage, every change in life was based or accented or facilitated by a chant, drums, any of that.
Yes.
Without it, they wouldn't feel like they had the thing going. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's the other thing that's sort of missing from our culture, the one that we have established now, is there's really no rite of passage into adulthood. There's graduation of high school, but what does that mean? You're still empty. Like, who are you?
Right.
And what are you doing? And we're not really taught about, money and what it is. We just know that we have to make it in order to live, and we have to do something to make it, and that's what it's all about. But so we're talking about tribal and talking about getting back to our roots. That's kind of what this time is. It's a call to action to come back together and to re-employ ancient healing techniques, and to understand that we are mighty, magnificent beings.
Yeah.
In a life.
Way back in the day, with pharaohs and all that stuff, we were taught that we were pretty inept, and they kept us that way.
And then they incorporated
even
religion.
in some cultures, they would outlaw songs, music, different chants, all that stuff. We get somebody killed.
Right. Anything that would empower you.
Heresy.
Yeah.
And
and the churches. Remember, the churches. They called them churches, but they were healing centers. They had organs that would organize your energy, and the cymatic patterns, the beautiful mandalas or malas on the outsides of the doors or of the windows were the patterns that the organs made. The cymatic patterns are beautiful. They're floral, and if you just hum to yourself and sing to the cells in your body, it gets back to. And I wanted to bring some visual aids. It gets back to Masoto, Dr. Masoto, who did the work with the water crystals.
I can't remember that guy's name.
Emoto.
That's
Dr.
him.
Emoto.
That's him, yeah.
It gets back to Emoto's work, where you can take water molecules and put an intention behind it, or just put a thought and a feeling, and then the shape and the form that the water crystal makes is healing. It can be a blob. Even the elite know about sound healing, because they took a 442A, which allows harmony in a cell, and made the tune to 440. It's a very subtle difference, but it mucks up the center of the cell. It mucks up the center of the molecules in our body, so that we. Have you ever? To me, when I listen to regular music, it's irritating, because it's changing the cell structure of my body, and it doesn't. It's not healthy, and they know that. That's. I mean, everything was changed. You know, Rockefeller medicine, Rockefeller music,
Right.
Rockefeller money.
Yeah, it was all about control.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can control by something. If you look at our situation now, like a lot of the songs and like especially hip hop, those guys are destructive.
Yeah.
And even hell, country music is always talking about cheating or something like that. It's destructive
Drinking.
too.
Yeah.
But there's
Drinking.
never a walk. There's never in those songs. There's never a walk out to positivity.
Right. Well, there used to be
Yeah.
before the main takeover, and now,
Yeah, I remember
music is-
back in the day, even on TV, you know, the show always never ended unless everything was cool.
that's true.
Yeah.
Everything had to be put back together
Right.
and sorted out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's I just go on with what you're saying. I think I interrupted you. Did I interrupt you?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So
Can you tell us, you don't have to name like a specific name, but maybe a certain case where you saw a lot of benefits, or just kind of what you see from some of your clients? Because I saw you have some amazing reviews on your Facebook
Thank you.
page.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a example of sound healing. I met a client that had 2 knees. She was about a 47-year-old woman who had what she called her knees are failing her. And she worked in the medical system. She was a radiologist. Anyway, I put my hands on her knee, and I actually met her at a retreat. I put my hands on her knee, and I realized that there's a lot of trauma in her knees. And I said, I felt like this is birth trauma. It was both of her knees, and usually birth trauma is just on the right. So I put my hand on the other knee, and I realized that was guilt trauma. So she actually felt very guilty about her birth trauma, the way that it affected her mother. And she wasn't able to hike, and she wasn't able to go upstairs. She wasn't able to do a lot. Now, I did a lot of, I moved energy through the knees and with my hands, and did some other work, incorporated the hips and the feet, just the whole energy line of both of the legs. I think I just gave her a whole session. But when I went back to the knees, I do this thing where I just like Robert was talking about a torus. I sort of create a torus energy field with my hands, and create new life force energy. And I then put my hands on her knees and just let that sink in. And my intention is to create new cells, new life, and sort of start over with the knees. So I did that on both of the knees, and she was saying how she was able to walk up the stairs the next day without the creaking. So she came in for a session, and I was able to go through I used a tuning fork, and I was able to go through her entire timeline to her birth and bring in and sort out the energy on both sides of her knees from her birth trauma. And then that begins to affect stem cells and that kind of thing. And stem cells have memory. She healed, and then she kind of had a bit of a relapse, and then we did it again. And now she can hike in Colorado, something that she had never thought that she'd be able to do is hike in Colorado.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then also you can detect weaknesses in the energy field, or like if somebody just can't, swallow or can't breathe or whatever, there's usually something in their history, and it's usually just outside of their shoulders, and it affects their confidence. That's where your confidence is, just outside of your shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I found a spot in people, not to digress, but whenever you begin to sort out energy, you don't always have to know what it is, but when you are beginning to sort out energy, it heals on all the levels. It heals on the spiritual, mental, and emotional aspects. So a lot of times, just like in this case, the eyes will just begin to water. The eyes will just begin to cry. And these are old tears. But I found a space in her energy field just off of her shoulder where she was approached by a man. She was out to dinner with a friend when she was about 8 years old, and she and her friend were finished, and the parents were still wrapping up at the table, so they went outside to play, and the 2 girls were approached by a man in a car. that literally tried to get them in the car, and he was beginning to get aggressive, and then the parents came out, and it scared the living daylights out of her, and it affected her throat and shoulder. And she was about 8 years old when that happened, so I was working on her when she was about 37, so the entire time of her life was affected by this one incident.
Wow. Yeah, my sister was almost kidnapped as a child, and she talks about it still. I mean, we still remember it. It's very traumatic.
And that's a trauma that can be healed in the energy field. And, just like Robert said earlier, you don't have to be present, because all energy is connected at all times in all places of the universe. And there are countless experiments that prove that, and I can work with someone in person or distance exactly the same.
Yeah. 90% of my clientele I've never met. They're from other parts of the world, that sort of thing. And a lot of times, those are the easiest ones.
They are, and they're the most effective.
Right.
Yeah, because the stories that you've never met, and the stories that you can't see, and the stories that you can only see through spirit are the ones that heal the most and the most thoroughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I had a friend that had some nodules on her throat. They were on her thyroid. There were 4. There were 2 that were larger than the others, and I played my my thyroid, my handy dandy thyroid sound bowl with a
I need that.
what would I have? I had it's a certain type of crystal that sends energy. I can't think of the name of it. It starts with an M. Anyway, I did distance healing on her. She was going in for 2 weeks for another sonogram to decide. I know Dr. Marcel is the cuts on the crystal. It looks like one of those ancient healing. Anyway, it's sent. It's like psychic surgery, basically. So I did that with sound. Anyway, she went in 2 weeks, and the person that gave her a sound sonogram had the 2 images side by side, and she couldn't believe it was the same person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did that all distant.
Yeah.
I did it. It was about 4 sessions for
a
her.
lot of times it's almost easier that way, because the person, well, like in my case, if I'm talking about somebody how they're dealing with their sexual issues with their husband, if they're not looking me in the eye, they can relax a little bit,
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was even on topic, but there you go. So,
anyway, it's a big
the
energy
distance
center.
thing.
It's a big, it is a distance thing.
Yeah.
It's and they they can lie there, and you can see around them. Like I was working with a guy in California, and I just told him to lay down. So he goes into his own room and he lays down, and the neighbors above his head were horribly disruptive. I said, "You have some extremely disruptive neighbors." He said, "Yeah," and I think he was actually affected by their energy, but just his house where he was, there was a graveyard. Just, I guess he was on a path, and there was like a little fence with a little area that I guess was his sort of patio, and then just on the other side of that was a big graveyard, and that graveyard was affecting him too. He was, a lot of times,
that might have something to do with what he feels about graveyards.
It could, sure.
Yeah,
but all you have to do is separate that energy, and it can heal just from the intention of separating it.
Yeah, or even who frequents that graveyard.
Right.
All that makes a difference. They're actually starting to pick up that, understand that in the quantum physicist area.
Right.
That the vibration of other things and people and things like that will affect you, whether you know it or not.
Right.
You stand next to somebody, or like I said a minute ago about any music. You can hear some music and it'll knock you off a little bit if it's that disruptive for you.
Or it can stimulate a memory.
Better,
at a time that was unstable for you. Or even elation. It can stimulate elation. You can all of a sudden go into your head and be elated too.
Well, one of the techniques when I'm telling somebody how to deal with depression, I tell them to play some music. This is why I actually called you. I tell them to play some music that feels how you're feeling now, and then graduate the songs as uplifting. So you would, you know, something real destructive if you're feeling that way.
Find that
and then bring it
match.
back, bring it up until it's something that makes you happy.
Very good.
It'll take your vibration with it.
That's a very good.
Yeah.
That's a very good. And actually, that's one reason why I have more than one tuning fork, because not everyone can vibrate at a higher level. Like this is a 528. Not everyone can go here at first. And this is a 174, and it has a lot of pitch in it. So and the pitch tells me the energy.
Yeah.
I'll see if it. Hello. Okay. I'll see if I can get
just
my
get close to it.
my mic. Okay. So yeah, that's very good. And then I'll play a 520. Sorry.
It's okay.
See the difference?
Yeah.
You can. It may be very difficult to match this. And I even have some higher
There's a
that can create some anxiety.
If you don't mind, there's a
much.
technique also. If you use those forks, and this is just my own technique, okay? So it doesn't mean it's not the same as you probably. But what you do, you think of that, you get that vibrating, then you imagine yourself laying into the vibration.
Nice.
A visualization, just laying there and floating with it. And that could take everything, make it change too.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of sound bowls.
Yeah.
When you're doing sound meditations. And Brittany, you were saying something about tuning forks for children. They do. They bring a restless child into a center point. I taught somebody how to use tuning forks on her restless child. She brought her child in, and actually he had some root issues. He wasn't he was a precious little, maybe 2.5-year-old, and his energy was, he was still in his crown. He could literally see 360 degrees. He didn't want to get in his body.
Yeah.
And so his root was, he wasn't inhabiting the lower part of his body. So I had to bring him in, seal him up, and bring him into his feet. And I played a 432 tuning fork, and it melted him.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. So I could come to you for you to teach me how to use tuning forks with my child.
Yeah, and they're not expensive.
Okay. Where do you get them?
I got mine from biofieldtuning.com just because I'm a practitioner and I use them. They're made a little bit more sturdy and they don't lose their tune as quickly as a regular tuning fork. But there's also tools for wellness that they have specific. And my first set was tools for wellness. And I used a tuning fork on a guy who couldn't he couldn't get anything going in his life. His energy field was a mess. And I used a 396 on him all the way around. And he lived in California. He could even be listening right now. And he's a friend of mine. And his energy completely sorted, but the main thing that was going on with him was in his right elbow. And we have an energy center in our elbows, in our energetic fields, which is our parents. You have a center for your father in your right elbow, and you have a center for your mother in your left. And he developed, after the next day, he felt like $1 million. And when he just walked, he pulled up in the parking lot, and I could feel him park. I mean, I knew he was near because his energy was just, it was like Pigpen on steroids.
Scattered.
Yeah, it was very scattered, very fear-based, very, very staticky. And I think it's just because of all the work that he did. Anyway, sorted all that out, and the next day he had
You incorporate, go ahead and finish that.
The crux of what was going on with him was really the relationship with his father, and his elbow turned into a big egg. It was all that energy came together at his elbow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you incorporate, like when you're doing the work on them, do you incorporate deep breathing?
Yeah, that's part of the session. You breathe, you connect
it
in.
Helps you clear,
Yeah, you line them up. And you know, you're not just working with someone's energy field. You're working with their chakra system. You're working with their brain. You're working with a lot of different things at once.
Yeah. Yeah. It all works together, but I lost my train of thought, man. Whatever.
What do you?
It all works together, you know. Mm-hmm. But like I had a healing done a long time ago. I had a back went out and stuff, and no reason for it. Well, I found out it had a reason, but whatever. So I didn't go to doctors because I never believed those guys, right? So I went to the shaman, and she doesn't even touch you, but there's a thought thing that brings the vibration. You do it through visualization, which is the same as sound in a way, because as you do as your thoughts change, your visualization changes, your vibration changes. In your case, the vibration itself is inserted, and it changes the vibrational frequency of the whole body,
and the thoughts, and the mind,
it
and
changes
the emotion,
all of
and
it.
the spirit. Yeah. It all lines up.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on just where you want to start. You know, you start with deep breathing, or you start with the sound, or you start with visualization, music, whatever.
You know how I usually start a session if I'm going to do one in person? I have them lay on a table, and I take my hand on their shoulder and then one on their quadricep, sort of, or even on their hip, and I have them take a really deep breath. And when they let out their breath, I press, and they can just feel the energy.
Right. As you're doing that, do you think about each hand? Like, are you thinking pressure on each hand or location in each hand?
Well, my hands and my pressure, I've been practicing long enough where they just do what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm asking that is there's a healing technique in the Hawaiian tribes called kahi.
Yeah.
And what you do just what you said. You're the quadricep, whatever, and then on the elbow. It's in kahi, you take deep breaths. You have them take deep breaths. You put a hand on each one. You can do it with music as music is going on. It actually helps you. But if not, you do that, and then you think about both palms at the same time. And the reason is, when you do that, it's kind of like having a cable. It's like the energy goes through you, and you balance it out that way.
Yeah, that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
There's just so many ways of looking at it, but it's still all vibrational frequencies.
It is.
All vibrational manipulation.
And I even use toning with my voice sometimes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
When I do regression and stuff like that, I do that. It's like, okay, take some deep breaths. Now imagine yourself going down and down. Literally takes them
sinking.
Yeah.
You are falling.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, they use that in, this is off topic, but they use that in radio and television commercials. They use the lilt or the slant of the word.
Yes.
Like they'll say, instead of cool, they'll say cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Your subconscious really tunes
it
into that.
Yeah.
It sure does.
So, and even that, when you start feeling it, then you feel all of a sudden you're digging this. Change your vibration to focus there.
Yeah. The funny thing is, too, I mean, we don't really realize how our environment affects us. We don't stop long enough to understand how are we feeling and what is affecting me right now. But I think that's the beauty of what's going on right now, the lockdown, or the whatever you want to call it. It's the stop period. And it's just
forced to think.
Yeah, and you have to sort things out within yourself, and you have to, that's why we're so busy. Mm-hmm. It's you can
be so busy you forget yourself altogether.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's why I used to run. When
I started this podcast, it didn't used to be us. It was. What the hell was it? I can't remember, but it was about body, mind, and spirit, right? And the idea is, I see our existence as like an arrow. If you don't have that spirit, which is the tip of that arrow, you're liable to go any direction. Do you see what I'm saying? And you have to have even pressure on both sides. It keeps your balance.
Right.
That way you go where you need to go. If you go too spiritual, you still tumble. Do you see? You still have to have
You're
the
not
balance.
grounded.
If you're letting your body go to shit, kind of like I did, then you start having issues there. If you're all in your head, you lose relationships, you lose physical
connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Close connections. Yeah.
But the cool thing, like this is why I called you, was that the vibration writes all that. You know, you induce some vibration, you bring it up or bring them up or whatever it may be, you get the vibration, aligned, and everything starts to work, including their intuition.
Right, and that's the thing that does come into play is their gifts come in, and you were saying vibration, and another way to say that is intention too.
Absolutely,
because intention is vibration, and that is true.
Intention would be the focus of vibration.
Right. Yeah.
Vibration is everything we are, and intention would be where you're going to put it.
Right, and how are you going to direct it?
Right,
and that's what we are. Is we're creators, and we do have the luxury in this reality to be able to think and to daydream, and we're not instantly manifesting everything that comes into our minds.
Right.
There are worlds like that, and so this is think about that. Yeah. So you really it gives you. It gives you the opportunity to think about what you want to make, what you want to focus your attention on, what do you want to create, what do you want to be, because you can really be, do, or have anything in this world.
Good
we
or
are
bad.
creators, and it is our job to do it. And that's the other thing that was taken from us was the wisdom and the knowledge and the knowing that we do create our reality. We create it individually and as a collective. Just like you were saying earlier, one of the human collective objectives right now is to learn about frequency and to learn about vibration.
That's where we're headed, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also to find out. See, a lot of people, what's going on now, a lot of people are working off their emotions.
Yeah.
Not thought, not spiritual understanding, nothing. Emotions. And emotion is nothing more than an indicator.
Right.
Kind of like the old fuzzbusters back in the day that let you know when the cops close. It's kind of like that. Okay, I'm afraid. Okay, what am I afraid of? Mm-hmm. Then when you look into it, you figure, well, I'm afraid of because I used to think that. Then you can work on that. But if you're afraid of something, it's like, okay, this is going on. Okay, let me adjust my movement to remedy that. But it isn't about, okay, I'm afraid, so somebody's got to pay for that. Or I'm afraid, so somebody's got to fix it, so I'm not afraid.
Object referral, right? You have to put it somewhere.
Right.
That's
somebody else got
to
take care of that. Just like the other day, I shared this post about this. I'm not getting into it. It's pretty raw. It was about some little girl that got hurt, and one lady got on there and was mad. She was saying, "How dare you put this on there? This negative stuff on there?" And she goes, "You just ruined my psyche," whatever the hell she said. And my answer to her says, "You're going to be okay. I got faith in you." because that wasn't my responsibility. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Just like everybody has a responsibility of maintaining their own vibration, their own vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
If it's a high vibration, you're rolling. If it's low, you're afraid. You see, we're paranoid or whatever.
Yeah, and you sort of know where your optimum is, and you kind of know. But just I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, I felt like I had a lot coming at me at once, and I had all these financial obligations that when I looked at them all in one big picture, it threw me. I spun out because for me it just felt overwhelming. And the truth is, the universe is a abundant place, and
absolutely
abundance comes from every direction. And so I really had to take a walk and sort that out within myself, and just kind of breathe into it, and because we do have to unlearn everything that we've learned.
Yeah.
And that is it's where we're going, and it's going to take a little bit of time for individuals like us are doing it now, and we're holding that frequency of having it being done and what it feels like and what it looks like, and then others can do it too.
Right.
And then we help. We bring people up as we go.
Right. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
That's why I even called it us, is because it's my responsibility to clean my stuff up as much as possible, get as strong as I can, get as connected as I can, and help other people do that. So I've been doing it for the last 30 years. And it's up to them to do that with their kids or their neighbor or their dog, whatever they want. Dog. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. You know, I had one time I was saying yo all the time. I had never been nowhere near Jersey. And I don't know where it comes from, some kind of birth defect. I don't know. So,
That's funny.
yeah.
What was I going to say?
What do you suggest?
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead with your thoughts since you thought of it.
I was going to say this: if someone is looking to shape their life and to understand how to self-observe and how to learn how to sort out, how to recognize balances and imbalances within yourself or someone else, I would highly recommend going through a yoga teacher training. I actually didn't become an adult until I did Shannon Buffington's yoga teacher training class, because it makes you stop and self-observe. And it teaches you breath, and it teaches you movement, and it teaches you mindfulness. It teaches you how to work with yourself, and then how to notice imbalances in others and what kind of imbalances they are. And it teaches you compassion for yourself and for others. Yeah.
Well, that's what it's all about. We're all here to get stronger and get things understood and help other people do the same thing. And collectively, we get better and better instead of sinking like rocks, whatever.
Yeah. And I just also wanted to say, I teach at a yoga studio, Sonara, in South Lake, and we have a teacher training program as well. It's really good, and it's going to be starting again soon.
And how do you spell Sonara?
Sanara. Yeah.
All right, we're coming down to the last of the hour. So you got something else you want to roll off with, or what?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for being here, for inviting me here, and just being gentle with yourself and doing self-inquiry and having compassion for yourself is where it starts. Self-love is where it starts. When you go to sleep, right before you end your day, remember all the good things that you did for yourself to show yourself that you love yourself, and reaffirm all the time what you're doing for yourself and for others. And it really does start with you, and then you can have love and compassion for others.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's something to say.
Thank you so much for coming today. That was all amazing.
Good. Well, I hope everyone got a lot out of it. I hope it was a pleasure to talk to you, Robert.
That was fun. Yeah.
Brittany, thank you.
All right. One thing that I always talk about, I wrote it a long time in the 90s, I think. And without sounding like I'm being a smart ass here, it was kind of a quote that I use, and I think about it whenever I feel like just bailing on his stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was going to be a truck driver at one point. I got so sick of this because of how it wears you down.
Yeah, I get it.
And you got to keep bringing that vibration back up and up. And sometimes if you don't do it enough, it takes you a minute to get back.
Yeah.
So that's how I've done time in the Amazon place like that to recenter.
Yeah.
Do you see? But I wrote this thing, and it basically says this. It goes, strive to be a person of action, a person that inspires others, instead of a reactive person that inspires no one. And that's all I got to say about that.
That's very true. That's very true. So I wanted to also add, I was going to do a little plug for myself if I could.
Plug on, baby.
Those that want to find me, I have a Facebook page, Energy Anatomy. And then I have energyanatomy.net is my website. I'm moving it over to Wix, and I'm going to be doing some online classes. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it on Wix I don't know if you'll see it live if you type it in right now, but that's my email, energyanatomy@gmail.com. You can send me a note if you want me to work with you. And also, I have a podcast as well, which I'm going to have Robert on, and that is Eagle Spirit Radio, and that is the truth realm for reality and spirit. And there's two. Isn't it funny how my mic went out? There's two meditations on there that are really good.
All right.
So thank you.
All right, there we go. I don't know how long this camera's going to go, so whatever.
Right.
It's just one of those days. Anyway, everybody have a good evening, day, and we'll talk to you next time.
Namaste.